I rest my case. Give it a share as well, because the more people that watch my stuff, the more people that watch me prattling around in the kitchen. Case in point, making a tit of myself in the kitchen with a camera strapped to my head. The better. Choke on some hash brown, why don't you? Get a skin, a crust. That's a better word. Why don't I call it a skin? A crust forming. See, I don't know what really the definitionary difference between a Rosti and hash brown is. Difference between a hash brown and a Rosti. Then we'll tell you there is no difference. That Rostis tend to be thicker than other potato pancake varieties. This gives them a creamy fair enough. I know it's not a latke, because a latke has bound by egg. So this is a Rosti, this is a hash brown. Where's my fish slice? There's my fish slice. Heidi hoi. Let's hash some brown. So in the KFC Wicked Zinger Tower Burger meal, I did put the link up top. I made some hash browns. I said I'll make another video about them because I make really good crispy hash browns. And you can too. It's really easy. Literally just need a few things. Potatoes. So King Edward's Maris Piper is something that makes a good roast potato or a good chip. Tends to make a good hash brown as well. These though are generic Sainsbury's baking potato or white potatoes. Just so, really, you can do this with any type of potato. I have cut a few eyes out because I left these in the pantry for a little bit too long. But you don't need to peel them. You can if you want, but I find it easier. Once you've peeled them, they're a bit harder to hold on to. You will also need a tea towel. This is a plain, clean tea towel. Got a stain from where I made hash browns before. Potatoes stain stuff, so either use a black or navy blue tea towel. Even then I think you'll get white stains on there. Works fine as a tea towel, it just doesn't look very pretty anymore, so you're gonna ruin it, but it's still gonna work fine. I also think these linen ones tend to work better than the fluffy ones, only because you don't end up with fluffy bits in your food. I have tried using kitchen towel, kitchen roll, kitchen paper, whatever you call it, tidy roll. Doesn't work, it gets wet and it explodes. You can put it in a sieve and squeeze it out, the water straight out of a sieve. But, well, sorry, so we need to grate it into here because these have got a load of moisture in them. And because they've got a load of moisture in them, they'll boil instead of frying. And we don't want that. So we're going to grate them into here, rinse this out over the sink to get rid of all that moisture. The only other way that I have found that kind of works is to put it into a sieve and squeeze it out with a sieve. Sieve the water out that way, but they're pretty much your only options. But this, you can get a cheap, crappy linen tea towel off of Amazon. Well, I'm trying to avoid Amazon these days after all of the crap they've been doing, but anywhere, you probably go to a charity shop and get a cheap tea towel, boil wash it, and you're good. The other thing we need is a grater. So best sort of grater for this is like a big box grater. You want to use the big holes. If you've only got a hand grater, you can still get away with doing this, but you do need the bigger holes. The smaller ones are going to make matchsticks and they're just going to turn to mush. But all we do, grater, potato, grate away. I'd say, depending on, if you're making a little bit of hash brown as a side for like a fry up, one of these sort of big sized potatoes will do 2 people. But if you're doing like, the hash brown is like the main centerpiece and you want a lot of hash brown, then what I'd say is that's like a person's portion. If you end up with like a chunky bit like that left over that you can't grate, it's fine. Right, so now we've got a big pile of grated potato, pomme de terre, patate. So now we're just gonna bindle up our tea towel into like a little parcel and go over to the sink, and we're just gonna squeeze. You see how much moisture's come out of there. If that moisture had been in the pan, we'd just end up with, it it'd just be boiling before it'd boil all that water for ages before it'd fry. If you've not got big meaty man paws, if you've not got big ham-fisted mitts like I have, on your draining board, twist it around like that as well, put it on your draining board, and then just put your body weight on it, and you get a similar sort of effect. You can also, where are we? Put along the bit there, a screwdriver would work. That's not what I'm trying to think of. Like a spoon, big wooden spoon along there, and then twist the wooden spoon around to create the same sort of effect. But there you go. So you see why kitchen towel, that sort of stuff wouldn't work, because that would just explode from all that moisture and torsion. Hasn't got to be utterly bone dry. We just wanted that first major cascade of potato juice out of the way. And what we're left with, I'm going to break it up a little bit, is much drier potato. I'm going to cook these in a couple of different ways. So I am gonna, if you want to make the ones that I made where I put them in the burger, you're going to need to get yourself, if you want to make them really nice and round, some ring moulds. So you can go and find proper chef's ring moulds. I don't know how expensive I've ever bought them. This is just a set of cookie cutters, pastry cutters, biscuit cutters. That's why they're serrated on one side. But if you use the ring round flat side, it sits in the pan quite nicely. Also be careful because this is metal and non-stick. If you're doing that, just don't move that around too much. But we're gonna make one nice and fancy ring one that can go in a sandwich or a burger or whatever. But most of the time, if I'm doing hash browns for a breakfast, I just chuck them all in one big pan and just make one big giant patty. Almost kind of stir fry it. Well, actually, don't stir fry it because it don't break it all up. But we do this. But what I do first, a light sprinkle of salt all over this here now, and a crack of pepper. You can put stuff in with this as well, like grated or finely diced onion at this stage. Works quite well. Chuck some chilli in there. Chuck some bacon in there. Up to you. What you don't want is put a load of moisture back in here. So for the first one we're going to do in the ring mould, I'm going to put about a teaspoon of oil in the bottom of that ring mould. Olive oil will be fine, any oil will be fine. I find the neutral flavoured frying oils to be better. Kind of low, and start preheating that pan as well. So all I'll do, take a handful by handful, drop it in that ring mould, and then just pat it down. Try and give you a good angle. And then a little bit more, just to build it up to the level we want it at. I mean, you can make these really quite high and thick if you want, but obviously the thicker it is, the longer it's going to take to cook. The secret to these is to go low and slow. So that's in there like that. If you want to get the one ring mould and you need to make another one, if you hold it down with your hand, with one hand, and then lift it up with the other, you usually get it away like that. So you see that's quite nice and round. The heat, you want to balance it. You want to get to a point where it's just, you can just ever so slightly hear it sizzling in that oil, but not proper frying, because we're going to slowly build up the brownness and the crust on the side, but we do need it to slowly cook through as well, because raw potato is not great. No one likes raw potato. But what I would normally do, so in this pan, the bigger pan, I'm going to do, like say I'm doing breakfast for like 2, 3, 4 people. Bunch up the tea towel and underneath it, and then just get the whole lot in the pan like that. Got to put oil in there, didn't I? But it's easily rectified. What we're going to do is get the potato tea towel out of the way, pull this to one side. You don't need to do this. What you should have done is put a generous glug of oil in the bottom of the pan. Then put our potato in. So I've simulated putting the potato in on top of the oil. And then what I tend to do is just pull it together around the edges with a spatula, but then just push it down till it's about maybe half an inch thick, probably not, but probably a third of an inch thick at the middle. All together like that. And then it's a waiting game. Slow and low, same as the other one. You want it to, so you can just about, you might just be able to pick up that one sizzling quietly in the background. So there you go, we've got one big massive hash brown. We're gonna go another pinch of salt over the top, because this is potato. It's, in some ways, like beef, it can do with a lot of seasoning. I'm gonna go over the top of that with a bit more pepper as well. And we're just gonna leave them. So now, obviously, you can go do your bacon, go warm up your beans, whatever you're doing with your breakfast. That's, if you're doing it low and slow, it's hard pressed to overcook it. So, but also don't get fiddly with it, because it will start to fall apart. Just leave it for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and we'll come back, and then you can see, I'll show you when it's ready to flip. Kind of getting around about time to flip. I don't know if you'll be able to tell, you'll be able to sort of see around the bottom circumference. You can tell better on this one around here, where it's starting to go brown. But what you can also do, if you pick the pan up, give it a little bit of a shake. The fact that it moves around as one nice continuous piece means that it's got a decent bit of browning and it's holding together on the bottom. But you can also hear audibly that it's starting to get a bit crispy. At this point now we can give it a flip, and if it isn't quite done, it's okay, we'll be able to flip it back. But you need to let it start to build up that bit of crispness that'll hold it together. This isn't a particularly healthy dish, no. We're going to just give a little drizzle of oil on the top of there for when we flip it, and same for this, although there's a little bit more oil in the pan, so I'm not going to go nuts. So we're going to give this a flip, so you should be able to get a decent sized spatula underneath, like that. Just flip it like a burger. You see that perfectly like mottled colour in, so perfectly timed to flip. This, just go for it, flip it. It's probably going to break up on you. I'm going to need to flip this back over again. That's probably going to break off up there. A proper hash brown, that looks cool, right? But that's more like what I consider a Rosti. I don't know what really the definitionary difference between a Rosti and hash brown is. Same temperature, low and slow. Like I said, this one's going to be alright. This is going to need flipping back over to get it a bit browner on that side as well. But once it's started to a crust forming on the bottom, it will hold itself together a bit better now. Alright, probably like 10 minutes later. See how nice and crispy one side is. So as the other side, I would say, I don't know why, but one side never quite looks as appealing as the other. I don't know why that is. But nice and crispy. Sometimes it can help if you want to take them off, put them on some kitchen towel, because they can be a little bit greasy. Bosh! So you can see, I mean it's going to be hot, but I'm going to give it a minute. I'll talk before I eat. That with a fried egg on top, that's a breakfast as far as I'm concerned. I don't see how anyone can complain about that. Or that with an egg on top and slices of that to dip. Bosh. You know I'm a winner. You know that's a winner. You know I'm talking sense. Let's see if I can. I rest my case. Potato, grater, pan. Bosh. Bit of salt. It's hard to over salt them. It's like chips. You can get there eventually, but so these sort of little ones, they're a bit thicker. See, it's a bit more flexible. It's still crispy. They are a bit more like a Rosti. They're a bit more fluffy on the inside, but go lovely in a burger. Add a nice textural difference. These bigger ones are a bit more like a traditional American sort of hash brown. Chuck that on a fry up, bit of bacon, bit of egg, bosh. Or like I just said, on its own with an egg on top. Or just on its own, dip it. You know I'm not wrong. So, Christmas coming up, people are going to have a bit more time off. Treat yourself to a bit of a nicer breakfast. Hash browns. Make them. You're going to have loads of potatoes left over, probably. And that, people, is a wrap. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Give it a share as well, because the more people that watch my stuff, the more people that watch me prattling around in the kitchen. Case in point, making a tit of myself in the kitchen with a camera strapped to my head. The better. You know, spread some Christmas cheer. I'll see you when I see you. Hopefully a bit of a short one. I don't know, I haven't edited this yet, but get in the kitchen, get working. 10 minutes later, hash browns. Right then, I'll see what I see you. I'm sure I'll see you before Christmas, but if I don't, have a Merry Christmas. And I'll see you when I see you.